Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Welcome to the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast. I am Yahoo senior NFL writer Terez Paylor. Here, my main man and fellow senior NFL writer Charles Robinson. And Charles, I feel like we're coming off a busy week, heading into an even busier one that is stretched through this past weekend. So the news of the week: Matthew Stafford is no longer a Lion. He's a Los Angeles Ram. Jared Goff goes to the Lions along with a bunch of picks. Straight up, see who won this trade.
I think it's okay. I think this is listen, I think it's actually a deal where everybody walks away, including the individuals involved, the quarterbacks involved, the teams involved, the team leaders involved, the coaches involved. I think they all walk away feeling like they did pretty well. Yeah. I think the winner of this trade, really, to me, it hinges on probably regardless of what happens with Matthew Stafford, I think it really leans on Jared Goff. I think if Jared Goff goes into Detroit and he reboots, and I do believe that Brad Holmes, Ray Agnew, obviously the two guys who come over from Rams, become the general manager and assistant general manager, they believe he is capable of having a reboot moment. This isn't Detroit bringing in Goff to dump him. I don't even know that's necessarily a bridge quarterback situation. I think they would like to see Goff return to the form that he had, 2 years ago. And if that happens, Detroit wins this in a big way, just in terms of the sheer compensation of it, the 2 first-round picks, a third-round pick, and maybe a Goff who might still be a good player.
Well, see, that's the scary part about this. I think if you're the Rams, just from this aspect, there were people around the league who thought the Lions got a good haul outside of Goff, like the 2 first-round picks and the third. One guy sent me a gif of Scrooge McDuck diving into his ponds, say, hey, this is what the Lions right now, Right. I'm just saying like that. And then, I had somebody else, another league source, say for Stafford, asked for his thoughts. He's like 12 years, no playoff wins. So this is not like a bashing Stafford podcast, right? But I do think that because I like Stafford, and I wrote a column on this like today. Like now we get to see how good he is. People keep asking me, "Hey, Terez, what do you think of Stafford?" And it's always, I wish he had someone like Andy Reid from the get-go. Well, as long as he stays healthy, and as long as he doesn't like get hurt, there's no excuses now. Like this is his Andy Reid. Sean McVay is a top 7 play caller, a top 8 coach, something like that. And there's no doubt in the scheme he's in, which helps make quarterbacks look good. The run game he has was finished 4th in DVOA last year. And the skill players around him. Plus, I know they lost Brandon Staley, their defensive coordinator, but this defense was still top 5 in terms of DVOA. And they still have Aaron Donald. They still have Jalen Ramsey. They should be pretty good, okay? So I'm just saying – it's all set up. Plus, he's in a dome for at least 9 games this year. So, at least 8 games. So, I'm just saying, this thing is set up for him to prove what he is fully capable of. So, my question to you is, best case scenario, what do you think Matthew Stafford's ceiling is?
Well, 33. He's going to be 33 in February. I do think he still has a window left. I'm a little concerned that he has been injured. He's played through injuries, but he has been banged up the last couple of years. I don't think he's a young 33 by any means. Yeah. So I do think that offensive line, having Andrew Whitworth back next year is fundamental now. Obviously, he's coming back. Do I think that he has the capability of elevating them to a Super Bowl level? Yeah, I do. I believe in him. I think he's I wouldn't put him on the tier of a Mahomes or any of those top 5 guys. Okay. Do I think he can be somewhere in that 6 to 10 range? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. And I think with that defense, seeing how they adjust without Brandon Staley, but they have the veterans there. I think that defense is going to be great. And they have the skill position pieces. And So what's interesting to me though is, so I reached out to people inside the Rams the night that this happened, and people got back to me pretty late. But I said, the first round picks, man, you guys really don't care. You guys don't care. You guys hate those first round picks. And one guy said to me, one thing that we have been really good at is forecasting out what drafts look like in future years, finding guys. He's like, we've survived without first round picks up to this point. We feel like we can develop guys from middle rounds, and we know we feel like the drafts are going to look like in 2022 and 2023. I don't, we'll see if that's the case, but I think that for Stafford, it's all, the window's obvious here. Like, it really is a 2 to 3 year window where Whitworth's coming back next year. You got Kupp, Jalen Ramsey, all the key guys, the contracts are there now. So it's like, hey, it's time to get it done now. And then for Sean McVay, I asked sort of what was the unraveling. I'm sorry, I know this is a long answer here.
That's all right.
I asked sort of what was the unraveling with Jared Goff. And now I remember visiting with McVay, not this past summer, but the one before. And he told me his big hope, and he was pretty excited about it, was that Goff was ready to start growing a little beyond his control, meaning like affecting the offense in his own way. And it didn't have to all come from McVay. That didn't happen. And I think part of what I was told was it was two things. Number one, Goff was making, and we talked about this in an earlier show, maybe more than one show. I think you and I talked about this. He was making mistakes that he should not be making this many years into his career. Just dumb mistakes, dumb throws, things that just flat out he shouldn't be doing as a pro. And then I think the second thing was McVay, as time went on, McVay is one of these guys. He's we always talk about him like Kyle Shanahan, Sean Payton. He's one of these guys that he's adjusting the offense as he goes, because he knows the NFL is an adjustments league. He learned that the hard way in the Super Bowl, that teams are going to adjust to what you do well. And if you don't change your stripes, even offensively, scheme wise, teams are going to start to beat you. They're going to overcome what you do well. I think from what I was told, particularly a number of the games where Goff had failures this year, the thought process was with McVay, I am figuring out how to adjust the things I need to do to win in this league. Goff needs to come with me, and he's not. Like I have now exceeded his ability to change quickly and process quickly. And if he can't do that, he can't be my quarterback. And Sean McVay made up his mind on that. And in particular, a lot of the downfield stuff that they weren't doing this year, I think bothered Sean McVay. They weren't taking big shots. They weren't putting things up and making big chunk plays. It was a lot of shorter reliance and making other guys get the ball out of Goff's hands, make other guys create big chunk plays. And I just don't think McVay liked where the offense was going with Jared Goff there. And once he crossed that bridge, he was done with it, and everybody else had to catch up.
So if you're the Lions, wouldn't that concern you that Sean McVay, who's widely thought of as someone who's at least very good at evaluating offense and calling offense, and one thing we have to acknowledge, developing like a coaching staff. He's got an eye for talent, not just developing players, but also developing coaches. Like, here's a guy whose staff has been completely rated over the last month. Like, wouldn't that concern you that this top 7 coach wouldn't be that interested in Goff, wants to get rid of him? Number one. Number two, I think if you're the Lions, if you've misevaluated this does set you up in Goff's potential. This does set you up to enter the quarterback wilderness they were in for 50 years before 40 years. No, 50 years before, after Bobby Lane got traded. Yeah. Right. No, after Bobby Lane got traded in 1958, this team didn't have a quarterback except for that one Eric Kramer year. And even him, they're like, no, he's not good enough. It's like, what? He led to the NFC Championship game. But anyway, they were in the quarterback wilderness for 5 decades before Stafford got there. And if they miss on Goff, not only will that just be a miss that's going to cost money, there's also, hey, he could get it in. If you're telling me they really like him, this could get in the way of getting the guy who's actually really the answer. Right. Okay. It could. Now, maybe they pick one early next year, but say Justin Fields falls a 7 this year. Say Zach Wilson probably won't fall, but say when Trey Lance falls a 7. If you really believe that Goff has a chance to resurrect himself, you probably don't take him this year. I'm just saying, like, this has a chance to really blow up in their face. But I think there's risk for both teams, don't you? But address what I first said about the Lions and Goff and potentially being worried about McVay.
I'm gonna kill some sacrilege here. Let me give you two names here, okay? I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that Sean McVay has to now prove that he and his scheme were not the problem. Okay, he's got Matt Stafford. Okay, now he's got his guy. He's and you know, in the building, it's, hey, Jared's making these mistakes. He's not keeping up with the things that I need him to do. The scheme isn't working with Jared, and so that's the breaking point. And now that we know that, it would be absolutely, you know, criminal for us to move forward with him as our quarterback. We know he's not the right guy. Okay, great. Well, now you put yourself in the center of the target now, Sean McVay, because you have to prove now that you went out and got your guy and you spent what you spent, that if the problem now, if Matt Stafford comes in and still some of the same problems, maybe it starts to be a Sean McVay problem. And now here's where I'm going to get a little sacrilegious on this. Adam Gase was the greatest thing ever when he got into Miami. Okay. He was great. He was unbelievable. He's this, that, and the other. Greatest, you know, offensive mind, sliced bread, go back to Chicago. What'd he do with Jay Cutler? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Ryan Tannehill could not work there. Couldn't make it work. It was just a wreck. Ryan Tannehill's career is over. You know, oh, Jesus, he's never going to. Ryan Tannehill goes to Tennessee. He gets matched with the right coordinator for his skill set. He's perfectly fine. Adam Gase goes down in flames. Now that's one. Now that's the extreme. Now let me give you one that's a little closer to Sean McVay that bothers me a little bit here. When I started covering the NFL, okay, early in my career, I went down, worked in Detroit for a while. I went down and worked for the Orlando Sentinel. Used to go and cover the Buccaneers as you know, a sort of pinch hitter every once in a while. Chris Harry, great. Chris Harry, the great Buccaneers writer, I'd come in and fill in for him. Now here we go. Here we're gonna go. Here we're gonna do this right now. One of the guys on those staffs was Sean McVay. The guy who was above him, the main big guy who everybody loved, the offensive mind that was just beating the hell out of the NFL, and you were never going to solve it and blah, 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 was John Gruden, okay?
That's right.
Here's what happened with John Gruden, okay? John Gruden's offensive philosophies that delivered him to those Super Bowls, first with the Raiders, and then he goes and with Tony Dungy. Well, obviously not. He didn't make it to the Super Bowl, but, you know, it rebirthed the Raiders franchise under John Gruden. Then he goes to Tampa. He takes over Tony Dungy's team, and they win the Super Bowl. As the team caught up to John Gruden and what he liked to do with his offensive philosophy, John Gruden started to have quarterback problems, one after another, after another, after another. It was just this constant, it's the quarterback's fault. It's this guy, it's that guy. None of these guys are working. Well, then eventually we figured out, no, it's John. John's offense has not kept up. People figured out what to do against this Tampa offense that he was running, this West Coast offense. He was never able to adjust. So John went and lived in TV land forever and then came back. Now, here's the problem. Who is Sean McVay's, who would you say is really one of his, one of the guys he patterned himself after? John Gruden, big influence on Sean McVay. There is a chance here, and I know people are not going to want to hear this. And Sean, and here's the thing, I love Sean to death. Okay, I every time I've spoken to him, he's been fantastic. I want to run through a brick wall every time I talk to him. I get it. I totally understand everything about this guy. But I'm going to be honest here. There is a chance that he's like the other guy I loved covering when I was in Orlando, which was John Gruden. I loved occasionally going and being around John Gruden and wanted to run through a wall too. So now we look at Sean McVay and we ask, can Sean McVay break beyond being the next Gruden, the guy who runs into his own mistakes with his offense and then starts blaming quarterbacks and can't? It's not the quarterbacks. It turns out it's the guy. I'm not saying Sean's that guy, but he now has to prove I'm not going to fall into the John Gruden trap.
So a couple thoughts on that. Number one, one thing that McVay has going for him, and I'm not saying you're wrong, because I think that's a really fascinating look at it. Like, there is pressure on McVay. Like there is, like just as much as there is on Stafford, which I'll cover in a second. Like McVay also has to prove, hey, this is your guy now. Because if the Rams are 10-6 or 11-5 and they're losing in the wild card or divisional round, this is coming right around to him. This is his guy. One thing I'll say that he has going for him is that what did we always hear about the Gruden system? Like it's about John. Like it's not about adjusting to what you do to the players. This system is John. You're gonna learn John's lingo. You're gonna learn spider 2Y banana times 3. Like you're gonna learn all that. This is gonna be about John. And honestly, the way he calls games and his plays and his system, for all the growth we've seen in pro football, like I don't feel like he's evolved all that much. Like it's John's system. One thing he has going for him.
What we still having quarterback problems. With
right. Exactly. Isn't that awesome? Right. One thing I will say for McVay, the basis for his system is the Mike Shanahan system. Outside zone run. Now, they've switched that up a little bit. They're a little bit more multiple in a lot of ways. And even if he doesn't switch it up a ton, this system's worked for 30 years. That's a long time for this system to legitimately work. Aaron Rodgers killed it this year. Same system. Tennessee Titans killed it this year. Same system. Kyle Shanahan, bad year this year, but he individually had a good year despite, that team was beat to hell. But you get what I'm saying. Just one thing that he has in his quiver, one reason we don't know how this is going to go, is this system ages really well. And he's already shown some growth as far as how he wants to attack. Now, the proof is going to be in the pudding. And I think you would agree because he said, hey, Goff isn't growing with me. Well, now you got a guy that's a little different, don't you? Matthew Stafford can throw off platform, still has an absolute cannon, tough as nails. Somebody that can move a little bit and create a little bit, not Mahomes, right. But he can do a little. Yeah. This is a higher upside guy. He's also been beat to hell a little bit, so he needs to stay healthy. I think this is interesting because the excuses are out for McVay, but I think there's just as much pressure on Stafford. In today's NFL, and this is what I wrote in the column that posted last night, in today's NFL, quarterbacks have never had a bigger influence on the game. Like a dynamic one can lift you to 500. Look at or just help you to go to the next level with all things remaining the same. The Chiefs were a playoff team. They get Mahomes, now they're a Super Bowl caliber team, arguably the best in football. Kyler Murray, where were the Cardinals at before they drafted him? Not even hovering around 500. Special players at that position can lift the team from one level to the next. So the question is, Matthew Stafford's been a 10-year veteran. He played in this league 11 years, 12 years. Like one of my guys said, 12 years, no playoff wins. I think the record over the last 3 years is 14-25. Not a winning season since 2014. He has a lot to prove. And I'm not saying this as someone who grew up in Detroit hating on Stafford. He's the best quarterback of my lifetime. Oh, yeah. I would love to see Matthew Stafford prove everybody what he's capable and prove me right for saying I wish I could see what he's like with Andy Reid. But for his football legacy, on his football epitaph, it will be written that he couldn't lift that team to the next level. Now, I guess you could argue where they were to being middling, that is lifting them to the next level. But you would imagine if you're a great, great quarterback, sometime within the last 6 seasons, you have a winning record. And that hasn't happened since then. So there's multiple layers of this. See, he has a lot to prove too. And I don't think we should ignore that. As someone who's watched his games, who's seen him take some sacks sometimes, who's seen him throw some rocket ball, Stafford has a lot to prove too.
He is. There is an element that the Lions do provide some cover. Okay,
they
for
do.
Some players. Sometimes we look at players and we go, well, it's Detroit, and we do that honestly with coaches too.
See, not even sometimes, all the time. All these guys get a pass.
Yeah, bad environment, bad team that's dysfunctional. I get that.
No
I understand
idea how
that,
to win.
It's the great thing about this is though we're going to get the answer. We're not. This isn't going to be. We get
That's
all the tests. Yeah, we get all the test answers now. It's going to be amazing, and
no excuses. We get to see it.
Goff. Let me say this about Goff too, though. So Goff goes into that environment. The upside that he has is there are 2 guys in the personnel department who are bringing him in that I do think have some level of belief in him. Now, I am curious to see.
Agnew,
Yeah, and I'm curious. Yeah, Brad Holmes and Ray Agnew. Now I'm curious to see what happens. The draft is going to tell us a lot. Okay, straight up. It's going to tell us exactly where we are on this whole thing, because they draft a Justin Fields, they draft a, say Wilson does get to him, whoever. Let's just say if they take a quarterback in the first round, that automatically means that Jared Goff is in a bridge situation. He's going to know that. He's going to know I'm making a ton of money here, but I become cuttable. Really, after 2021, you can cut me, and you're going to inflict some pain here. There's no doubt about that. But you can cut me after 2021 and take a solid cap hit, but not obviously like the one they would take right now. So they're going to eat a large portion of his salary up, no matter what. But the quarterback situation in the draft is going to tell us a lot of what we need. I will say this though about Goff. When I think about his game, he is not. I think part of what worries me about how McVay looked at him is, you got, Wolford, right? So John Wolford comes in, and all of a sudden he's excited. You can see McVay was excited about it. He's like, hey, he's doing right. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's excited about what, clearly the kid can do some off the script stuff. They're just all these. And so I'm like, okay, well, basically what McVay is telling us is he's not, and we knew this anyway, but this is the absolute, stamp of it. He's not this guy that off script is going to go and do all kinds of stuff for you. He's not going to, we look at the 4 quarterbacks who made it into the title games this year. He's not Josh Allen in terms of the athleticism and the arm. Okay. He's just not. The kid's got a gun. He may not be Josh Allen in terms of the leadership either. Okay. He's not Pat Mahomes. We don't even need to talk about that. He's not Aaron Rodgers. We don't even need to talk about that. He sure as hell isn't Tom Brady. You don't need to talk about that. So what is Goff? I asked somebody with the Rams. So what is this guy? Is he what I heard he was when he came out in the draft? Well, geez, he's running this super simplified system at Cal. It's so simplified. He doesn't have to, process a lot. It's real simple in terms of the decision making. How's he going to adjust in the NFL, and will he be able to start to get the complexities of things and learn to think and process on his own, which is every single one of those quarterbacks. I would even say Josh Allen has grown into this, has an ability to think and process on their own, to create, to bend the offense, to
make the play caller right sometimes. He just hasn't shown it. And he's not that mobile either, which was a big problem. Like, that was a big problem. And that's one of the reasons McVay wanted Wolford. Like, can you run around and do something? Here's the thing. As a functional quarterback, Jared Goff is a big, strong guy that can throw the football downfield. Like, he can do that, right? But they're going to have to run basically the McVay offense to get the most out of him. Like, it's not hard to project what he's going to do in Detroit. It'll probably be very similar to what the last 2 years have looked like in Los Angeles. And if that's the case, the question you have to ask yourself is that good enough to win? Sean McVay already decided it's not. So for me, I'm thinking if you're the Lions, you got your bridge quarterback. Like, I think you have to get Justin Fields, Trey Lance, or Zach Wilson in this draft. And like next year, you take the huge L, post June 1st cut, whatever, move on. But like, Dan Campbell has a 6-year deal, and that provides him insulation and maybe wait like another year. But, there's nothing more important you can do to fix this franchise than getting the dynamic, creative quarterback that can maybe pull a couple plays out of his tail against Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. All right, because otherwise you're looking at basically Kirk Cousins, who's fine, whose stats are great. Like it, but there is a prevailing thought in this league that you're only going to go so far if that guy isn't a little more dynamic than that. So basically the ceiling is Kirk Cousins with Goff. If you look at it that way, I think for Detroit, a place where they don't know how to win and they've never known how to win, the best hope is that they find the dynamic quarterback that can raise everybody's fortunes. And I love Fields, you know that. I really like Wilson. And I think Lance has a lot of ability too. I wouldn't be messing around too much on this. Take your quarterback if you can. And I wouldn't be betting the farm on Goff to move this. If he's good, you can trade him. That's just me, but I know what you're saying. No, I know that there's investment from people in Detroit now. But I'm just telling you, the prevailing thought is that the people I'm talking to, they're like, yeah, I like the picks part of it. The quarterback part of it is just a bridge. That's just what I'm getting.
As you said, if he's good, then you have a good problem on your hands. Because if you get a couple years down the road, you draft somebody, you get a couple years down the road. Now all of a sudden, hey, we're flush. We've got a young guy we're ready to roll with. We got an older guy who really isn't even that old. I mean, he's going to be like 27. That we can now deal to another team that likes him. Maybe he's regenerated himself to a point. And frankly, his contract, what's left on that contract, if he has 2 good years, the last 2 years of that contract are still going to be attractive, given where the quarterback market's going. What makes me a little nervous about that is Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, none of those guys look like when you're teaching a scheme and you're building a scheme for a young guy, I don't think Goff fits into any of those schemes really. I just don't see them. I don't see the similar, they don't necessarily have to be absolutely similar. It's not like Pat Mahomes and Alex Smith were, but it's I'm with you. I think if the right quarterback is there, I can understand, because look, you and I both know, and I think everybody should understand this about the NFL now. And the Rams probably just showed it. Keep working on quarterback until it's right. Don't ever give up. Don't think it's good enough. Just keep working on it until it's right. And then when you have your quarterback, that's when, and you really, really, really have him, that's when things get really good for you. This was a hell of a trade. It's going to be interesting watching this whole thing unwrap. And I think it's telling that Jared Goff seems like pleased that he's moving away from what was going on in LA. And man, if this doesn't put there are just guys out, between Shanahan and McVay. We talked about these guys having pressure on their quarterbacks and never being happy unless their guys are perfect. And good Lord, sending a guy away with 2 first-round picks strapped to him and a 3rd-round pick just to get rid of his contract, you really needed him out that much is just a hell of a statement to make.
I think if you're Goff, this has to be an FU McVay season, man.
Yes.
I feel like if you're Goff, this is disrespectful to me. I led you to the Super Bowl 2 years ago, man. And now I'm just being sent away I stink when I'm the number. And I will say there is a tiny chance that he taps into that because of the way he responded to being benched against the Seahawks. We and I both noticed. We were like, oh man, this guy's playing with a little bit of here's what I want to say. I think if you're the Lions, you can't build your offense around Goff. If you go my way, you're drafting and saying, okay, Anthony Lynn's coming in. Better than average chance he's bringing the Shanahan system. He was running that in LA, Okay, all those 3 quarterbacks I named could run that. And Jared Goff's just coming from that. So, maybe it doesn't fully maximize the tall downfield Al Davis vertical shot thing he would do, but he can run it. So I would just think hey, under my plan, you get your quarterback now. He gets to sit for a full year, and going into year 2, he's gonna know, hey, there's gonna be boots, a running zone, a little bit of power, play action off that. We'll have pre-snap motion to make it easy for you. Those quarterbacks can win in that situation. But I don't know. And actually, this does kind of lend itself to one question we got from Rodney in Detroit. What's up, man? Who asked us, where does Detroit go with the 7th pick now? I think the Lions see Goff as a starter for 2021 and 2022 because he's earned a lot of guaranteed money. You know where I'm at on what they should do? Would it surprise me if they go corner, pass rusher? Lord knows they need that. Tackle? No, it wouldn't, because these are premium positions in today's NFL. You cannot win without having foundational pieces at those spots. So if they don't go quarterback, they need help at all those spots. I wouldn't be surprised.
Just go with the best player. At this point, they're not. You get some differing opinions on Detroit's roster. Some people are like, yeah, it's not that bad. There is some talent there. It's because I think I saw the Super Bowl odds were last in the NFL after this trade. And someone was like, that's ridiculous. They're like, that's just stupid that they're people are slotting this as the worst team in the NFL just because Matt Stafford's not there. But like I said, I think, your best available. Look, the Oregon tackle, if that kid slides to 7, I don't think there's any question. You invest in the offensive
player.
Yeah,
I'm with you. Take someone special.
Yes.
Take someone special. If that's it could even be a defensive back. Is he a chess piece, Jeremy Chin type? Okay, I'm fine with it. But they got to take someone special.
A lot of really, they're going to lose Kenny Golladay. So there's a lot of really good, unless they franchise him, which I don't think they're going to do. But there's a lot of really good wide receivers that actually probably warrant a top 7 pick this year. More than one who warrants a top 7 pick this year. Listen,
anytime you can let a top 14 receiver go for nothing but a 3rd round pick next year, you got to do it, right? So that would not be inspiring me very much if they just let him go. But wow,
he doesn't want to be there though. I don't think he wants to be there. So you ask yourself that question.
Yeah, well. Okay, but you in general, I get it, but I know he doesn't want to be there. But you also have to run a football team, so there are different scenarios you can kind of run through here. I'm just telling you, it's hard to imagine a well-run team just letting that guy go for a 3rd round pick next year. Or maybe I'm just overestimating how good he is. Maybe that's possible, but I'm just saying I haven't really, I think he's a good player. I think he gets something more than a 3rd round pick in 2021 for him. That's what I'm saying. One more question. This is pretty good. If 2 firsts, a 3rd, and an offensive starter are the price for Stafford, what on earth is the price for Deshaun Watson, who is not coming off his trade request, man? He wants to go.
I don't think it's if you are really factoring in all these picks and you're like, well, this is now affects the Deshaun Watson value. I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding how this trade worked. And I ended up writing about this, about how the Rams, they tapped into the NBA style of selling. You're basically unloading a toxic asset, that being all the guaranteed money that they owe Jared Goff, and you're strapping something nice to it, a 1st round pick that somebody comes and takes it off your hands. They take your toxic asset for the 1st round pick. There's no toxic asset in Deshaun Watson. He's the asset. There's nobody's going to worry about the money he makes or whatever. I still think it's going to be the same thing it was before. You start with three 1st round picks right out of the gate. And here's the curveball here, though. If it's, but the problem is, you can't, if they're going to be late picks, if the Texans are sitting there going, this is the Rams offering us 3 1st round picks. Let's say it had been the Rams. They're going to go, okay, well, you got picks that are going to be between 25 and 32 for 3 years. We don't care about that. Those are 2nd round picks. Every team, when they set up their draft board, really ends up with 16, 17 1st round grades. Well, if you're not getting 3 picks that you believe are going to be in the 16, 17, or at least one that's definitively inside the 16, 17 range, I think that's a non-starter in terms of.
I think one's got to come this year. I think it's got to be a top
5.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think one's definitely got to come this year, because remember, they don't have their 1st and they don't have their 2nd. So ideally the 1st and 2nd, this is Deshaun Watson, people. Come on. I want a 1st and 2nd this year. I want a 1st and 2nd next year, maybe another 3rd. And John McClain, who's outstanding for the Houston Chronicle, reported, hey, they also want 2 defensive starters. His price was 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 defensive starters. I think that's worth it for this guy. This guy's 25. He's special. Pied Piper effect. I do that, especially if one of those picks comes early. That means I can potentially replace Deshaun Watson with one of these 4 young quarterbacks. So I'm all for it. I don't believe in trading great players, but it doesn't seem like this is a scenario where you really want to go to the mattresses with this guy. It's going to be a distraction every day for a new regime. I don't know, man. It's an interesting scenario because they can find the hell out of him. Up to $21 million if he retires. So I don't know.
And here's the thing too: if McClain is saying, it's really interesting because when there's specificity on the level of, hey, they want 2 defensive starters, it means they have literally
every day.
No, someone out there
absolutely
has floated the idea to them. Hey, we hear these 2 defensive starters we have that could also be on the board for this. So,
that's I think specific.
Yes. I'll tell you what, too.
Extremely specific.
At some point down the line, we're going to have another long conversation about the Texans and the Cully hire. I have spent some time on this, and I have a conspiracy corner.
Ooh.
Yeah, I haven't had one in a while. I definitely got a good one. I'm telling you. I have a really good one for this one. Anyway, it's look, Deshaun's going to be, I think, as expensive as he was before. I don't think this is going to throw it out of whack. And here's the thing too. What helped the Stafford situation was there were a ton of teams in on. You know, you had San Francisco called, Chicago called. Let me see who else. San Francisco, Chicago, the Rams. I'm missing a couple of teams. Oh, Washington. They all these teams offered for a first round pick and I think other assets as well. So there was a lot of interest in him, and there were teams that were all willing to start with exactly what Detroit wanted, which was a first round asset and more. And if teams all come to the table for that, that drove his price a little, and then they were willing to take on a toxic asset, which helps them out. Deshaun, it's three first. If McClain is saying 2 firsts and 2 defensive starters, I guarantee you those defensive starters are first round or 2 seconds. I mean, you're talking about it's studs, right?
It's a lot. Yeah, but I pay it. Like this is the hardest thing on football to find. This guy went to the Pro Bowl in a year where his team was 4-12. Yeah. Like I'm San Francisco. I'm like, what do you want? You had everybody except Nick Bosa. Like it just, and Freddie Warner. But you get what I'm saying. Like there's a way to work this out. Like you can, if you're San Francisco, that gives you a little bit more juice. Is Kyle? Like I would love that. Chicago, what is he worth to the Bears? A chance to erase the Trubisky mistake? Potentially give yourself a little bit more time too? He'd be worth a ton to the Bears, especially in that market with the person he is. Oh man, like the value of Watson, like this might be the biggest trade we've seen ever. Like it's gonna be great. Oh, by the way, have fun hypothetical. What if the Jaguars, like if you were the Jaguars, would you offer up the number 1 overall pick for him? Just call it a day. Would you do? Yeah. And guess what? If I were the Texans, I'd take that. Great. I get Trevor Lawrence, I reset. It's great. I'd do that in a heartbeat. Wouldn't you?
And I think
for both teams.
I think they would. I think they would be very, very amenable to that offer. And if I was Jacksonville, I would trade. You can say whatever you want about Lawrence and his evaluation and being 100%. Special, all that. But Deshaun Watson is we're talking borderline all-pro player this year when he was playing for a terrible team. Like just an awful organization. But I mean, he has done it. He's shown he can do it. I do wonder, though, one thing that I question is whether or not teams are sitting there going, okay, well, the Texans seem to feel like they now have this problem where Deshaun Watson has said, I expect to be a junior partner in your organization. Why would any acquiring team not think that? Because guess what? Yeah. You're now telling Deshaun Watson, you're automatically a junior partner in our organization because we just gave up the farm to get you. Yeah. So what are we going to do? We're going to bring you in and then we're not going to listen to you? Of course we're going to listen to you because we just gave up everything to get you.
That's a great point. There's some teams where that's not going to be okay, right? But other teams who care about winning, I couldn't help it. There are other teams who really are desperate that'll be like, fine. Also, one other thing to consider there, we don't even know. I mean, if you're Watson, why would you want to go there? Like they're young and they've got a lot of it, but like he's trying to go somewhere he can win now. He's not trying to have another. He's already gone 4-12 with a bad team. So that's just one thing to think about. But we did promise a mailbag show. Let's get to them. Yep. Question from A Minotaur's Words, who says, y'all were talking about the Bills and Browns avoiding a rollback next year. What teams do you think are in danger of rolling back in 2021? That's always that's always a tough one. Normally it's a team that loses in wild card weekend. Normally it's one of those teams that barely just made the playoffs that, like a team like Washington, actually, like a team that made the playoffs, was in the NFC East. We're all high on them, but if they don't get the quarterback situation straightened out for good, and they don't add more offensive weapons, and Dallas comes on strong, Dak Prescott comes back, New Giants keep building. There's a scenario where they don't make the playoffs next year. I think that's a pretty obvious one, don't you?
Yeah, I think. Look, okay. Well, let's start with the playoff teams, right? All right, let's just go there right now. New Orleans. What the hell's going on at quarterback? What do you explain to me what's going on quarterback? Because you need to figure that out.
Situation.
Yeah, that horrible
cap situation.
Horrible cap situation. What's going on in quarterback? Right there. Right. Number one. Chicago. Okay.
Yeah.
Again, it's the same quarterback. You can say whatever you want about how Trubisky performed at the end of the year. You have no clue who your quarterback's going to be next year. Boom. Huge problem. I think Indianapolis. Pick every team that doesn't have a quarterback situation resolved is a rollback team, because until you fix that adequately and in a way that is going to affect your team in a positive manner, you're going to have issues. So obviously Indianapolis. Quietly, look, Baltimore, I'm not happy with how it ended for Baltimore. I'm not. I think that you have to show you're not going to keep running into the same problems in the playoffs with Lamar Jackson and turnovers. And, I want to see Baltimore be healthy, number one. I want to see them address. I don't think it's even remotely finished around Lamar Jackson. Like, if I'm them, I'm sitting there going, okay.
We got to get Allen Robinson. Like, if I'm those guys, I need Allen Robinson. Like, let's go. Allen Robinson, Kenny Galladay, come on down. I don't feel as bad about them. I'm not as worried about them just because they got the continuity. Like, Lamar be back and the O-line and the coordinators and stuff. Like, I'm okay with them.
I get
they need that number one receiver.
I just don't like the fact that these seasons have ended so similarly 2 years in a row. Because I'm like, at some point, you have to augment something to change that. Okay, you can't be turning over the ball like this in the playoffs. You have to figure out how to augment that. And I feel like if you don't do it, that's when teams start to look around and go, this is kind of the same plan. Like, we're doing the same thing again. And then, then you start to have some problems. So that's probably my dark horse rollback team.
Oh, you just do a dark horse then. That's your dark horse? Okay. I'll go Tennessee then. All right. They lose Arthur Smith.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And by the way, you still don't have a defense coordinator. I mean, not really. When are we going to get a defined?
They better get a pass rusher to complement Harold Landry. I know that. Like, for real this time. Okay. So I like that. You feel good about that? I feel good about that.
I think Tennessee's another one. Yeah, for sure.
All right, here we go. Cole Casey Mo asks, what steps do the Cardinals need to take this offseason to not fall behind in the NFC West? All right, so the Cardinals were a team I thought was pretty interesting, right? I thought they were, as far as they took the next step, but they got to continue to add around Kyler Murray. I think he is a guy, just gonna say they have got to make sure they continue to make it easier for him to get the ball out quickly so he doesn't get hit. Because it does concern me by the end of the year, he was pretty banged up, right? So that means adding another tight end as like a security blanket. That would be great if he had a compliment to Nuke Hopkins. And in a lot of ways, Larry Fitzgerald functioned as a tight end,
Yeah, that's the point.
but I think they still need to add some pieces to take some of the pressure off him, man. I think that would go a long way toward helping him. And also, maybe another corner on defense. But they need to add more special players to help take some of the pressure off Kyler. What about you?
I'd pile drive half the offseason into the offensive line. And I don't just mean starters, I mean depth. Yeah. The thing that scared me the most about their season, well, there were two things. Cliff Kingsbury has some work to do on his scheme. Cliff Kingsbury, I think Cliff, there was some warts on Cliff down the stretch. I don't think he had, his game management. I didn't think the scheme. There were elements down the stretch where you're like, okay, now Cliff knows he needs to know there's some problems here that he has to solve, not only from a scheming standpoint, not only from a game management standpoint, but then Kyler Murray cannot get hurt. Okay. Like, you have to do everything you can to make sure that when he steps out of the pocket and runs or does whatever he does, those are the opportunities when he might get hurt, not when he's in the pocket. If he's in the pocket, great. He's good because you spent everything you need to spend to make sure that offensive line is not just talented on the edges in the middle, wherever, but also having some depth there as well. So to me, like I said, my whole entire offseason, if I'm Cliff Kingsbury, is let me make sure we get the offensive line fixed as much as possible. And I think tight end could be a part of that too. Get a good two-way tight end. And then also, if I'm Cliff, I'm like, okay, let me see where I screwed up. Let me see where my scheme is not necessarily working. Let me see why the second half of the season was just a bomb for me. Because there's problems there. So That's what I would do. Worry about the offensive line. Worry about your own scheming and how you're, I think, tuning up and managing your system.
Question from Count Zero KC. I know a lot will be made about the battle in the trenches, and I'll add, this is Terez talking, rightfully so. But back to Count Zero, he says, which defense has the better secondary to match up with the offensive weapons each team will roll out, 3 deep at least? I think the best defensive back in this game is Matthew.
Oh,
Matthew's gonna play a huge role in this game. Cover 2, being a rat player, reading Brady's eyes, trying to sniff stuff out. He'll be the best player. In the Chiefs, the way the groups are playing, the Chiefs defensive backs are playing better, in my opinion. Just looking at it, like the coverage last week against Buffalo was outstanding. Steve Spagnuolo did a great job dialing up blitzes, man blitzes, and the coverage was outstanding. And I'm going to give them the edge only because we saw this matchup like a month and a half ago. And Tyreek Hill caught 270 yards for the 13 catches, 270 yards. Travis Kelce went off too. I think 8 catches for 82 yards. Those 2 went off. But a lot of that also had to do with the scheme. The number one component of this game, the key to this game is Todd Bowles. Will he just be who he is and blitz, or will they play soft coverage? We talk about this every week. 2 safeties, 4 guys, keeping things in front of them. And yeah, Kelce's going to light you up that way. But I'd rather have that than just letting Ty Hill do backflips into the end zone. Right. This game comes down to how Todd Bowles calls this football game.
Well, I think that the 2 defensive coordinators are low-key probably the biggest storyline in this game. We're going to talk about the quarterbacks. We're going to talk about the head coaches, all these different things. But at the end of the day, beating Tom Brady got Spags his first job, his first head coaching job in the NFL. When Spags was defensive coordinator of the Giants, figuring out how to roll Justin Tuck inside, just murdered the Patriots.
His packages are ridiculous.
Yeah, he just,
his packages are insane.
So, Spags has a track record of, I think being able to figure out how to make Tom Brady uncomfortable. So that's good. And then, as you said, Bowles, I think nobody has a more difficult job in this game than Bowles and Tampa Bay's secondary. Really, not only the secondary, I think the linebackers as well. They do have, obviously, it's not like they don't have any turn and run linebackers. Devin White's
they do.
They do.
It's still tough, though, man.
Still tough, yeah. And so
it was funny. Today, Devin White was like, yeah, Levante's going to handle Kelce.
Yeah. That's a great line.
Ain't me.
Not me. I'm not handling that. Yeah. That's why Kelsey's my low-key. I ended up we'll talk about our picks and all that stuff later.
Oh, that's good. That's funny.
I expect Kelsey's going to be a problem.
Speaking of which, I had a chance to talk to Deion Sanders recently about Kelce, and I asked him how would he defend some of the better players in this game or whatever. And I was like, Kelce. He's like, Kelce? He's like, that's out my weight class. He's like, you got to give me Floyd or Conor McGregor. Don't give me Tyson. I love that.
You got to be able to. You got to want to tackle first off.
No chance. No chance.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, Kelce is a problem. So I think that'll be fascinating.
I would say that to answer that question, I think that the Chiefs fundamentally are a matchup problem for any secondary, and it doesn't help that the best player in the back, corners and safeties is on the Chiefs team. By far, he's clearly Tyrann Mathieu is going to be. He might be the best defensive player we see on the field in this game. So
he could be. Keep an eye on Shaq Barrett and Pierre Paul, who was talking a lot today. Those guys, they have a reason to talk too, man. If I were those guys, I'd be like, all right, we're coming every play off the edges, straight up. That. You got to know that's coming if you're Kansas City. Here's our kind of question, Charles, from TM Whisker, a.k.a. Human Bartender Jackie Daytona. What is your ultimate Super Bowl spread / feast?
I never have one because we're always that's interesting because this year we're going to be home.
It's been so long since I've been to a Super Bowl party.
yeah, it's going to be crazy.
I've been to one more recently than you though. I didn't go to the NFL 2013, so I think we agree wings has to be on this, right? Buffalo wings, 100%, right? Buffalo wings. How about buffalo dip? Have you tried that?
Yeah. Oh, of course. Buffalo dip, buffalo wings, pizza. I mean, I don't know. I get it's man, this sucks.
Pizza.
I just realized how wildly uncreative I am because I never had to think about it.
It's been what, 12? How long you been back on the NFL? Since 09, 08?
No. The last one I didn't go to was 20 after the 2013 season.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and then before that, so from 2001 to 2010, and then from 14 on. Okay. So I had a little
stretch. Well, you 3-year window, like a regular human being. I got you. I think pizza's on that list, man. Like pizza, 100%. You gotta have that. Pizza, wings, buffalo dip. You're good. I think that's pretty set.
It would be nice to be able to drink. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that right now, but it would be awesome.
You can say that, but this is family. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, that's fine. Right.
I would like to get peeled, but I don't think that's going to be allowed. I definitely would enjoy having a Super Bowl where I could actually. That's not going to happen, though. I can tell you that.
No, that's right. We're gonna have to. We'll be paying close attention and hopping on the post game Zoom. Low-key, I actually kind of enjoyed the Zoom sessions today better than the Super Bowl crush.
It's weird. It's really weird.
Is
it's
it?
Really
I feel like I felt like it was easy to kind of get around and maybe get some questions in. So I did not hate that today.
I sat in the
media
Brady.
night's a nightmare.
I sat in the Brady line and it felt like media night. It felt because I'm the whole time I'm like, all right, I got my hand raised. All right, nothing. Oh, great. Okay, we've got 3 questions from 12-year-olds. Okay, that's fine. I get it. You got to do that.
That happened to Gronk too, bro. And they went back to the person when the first time it didn't work out. That was amazing.
That happened to the Brady one too. Yeah, same thing.
Hey, see, I don't mind that. That's better than having to shout out your question over 3 people in Halloween masks. Like I can't handle it. Like I was fine with. I know that's an unpopular opinion. I don't care. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Scott on TikTok asks, what do you guys think the next QB move or trade will be? That is interesting. What do you think?
Next QB move or trade.
Watson's the one people are at least talking about. I mean, that's the obvious one to say, but I don't know if the Houston Texans are going to capitulate.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what the availability is, I mean, I think Watson's that's the guy that is now on the market that everybody is staring at. I mean, Stafford coming off the board is now going to put into focus. I think Indianapolis is sitting there, and you're like, now low key. Mm-hmm. I could see Garoppolo being the one that may pop, because here's why. I mean, San Francisco clearly was trying to get involved in this Stafford stuff. So like if you just got to look at the teams, you look at the team. So if they're trying to get involved now here's the thing. If you're trying to get involved in the Stafford stuff, that means that you were probably offering Jimmy as part of a package, or if you weren't offering Jimmy to Detroit as part of a package, Jimmy was going to be made available to the Patriots or whoever else was potentially interested in him. So I think maybe low key that Garoppolo could be the next guy. Only because here's the thing with Watson. I expect, unless there's just a knockout, absolute mind-blowing offer put out there, and really we have until the draft for any of this stuff to happen.
Oh yeah.
I think the Texans are going to play hardball with this. I really do.
I mean, I thought the language that they used was notable. Like Cully didn't have to come out in his presser and be that strong on that. Like Cully was basically like, I'm here because I thought Watson was going to be the quarterback. Like he didn't have to. What did he say? He said he is a Houston Texan and I want him to be a Houston Texan. And the reason I'm in this position today is because I knew he's going to be a Houston Texan. So guess what? That's something that you know you're going to say before you go into it. And he was punctuating it with the little pounds of the fit, like I think he, it's either amazing posturing or it's true. But the point is, like, they're going to at least act like that is the case, Go ahead.
And one quick thing they do have at their disposal here, and I don't know that will matter, but I do think that they may think that this is a card. There is a chance that the team president is out of the picture at the end of this. Not now, like that the team president is not returning, and that, there's a chance, I think, to affect some of the internal hires they make with the Houston Texans, that could potentially make Deshaun Watson feel like, I think maybe some ex-players could potentially be filled into some of these roles underneath the president role that maybe makes Deshaun Watson go, okay, maybe the org really is trying to hear my vantage point and the vantage point of not just myself, but other black players who have seen, certain guys go out the door that we were unhappy with. There's a lot there, but I would say that it's not, the Texans aren't just going to acquiesce to this all of a sudden unless there's just an offer that absolutely blows their minds.
Oh, how about Darnold? Let's pick second. You think that they're going to give him one more shot? If they're picking a key spot in the draft, one thing that's interesting, if they're going to stay with Darnold, they can move down and really stack more assets and really try to build a team around him. Or they could just take their guy at number 2. Either way, they're in a good spot.
Yeah, I think part of that is going to be the evaluation of, the staff. That how does not only Joe Douglas feel about this, but now as they fill out the staff and what has to happen, what I was told, what's going to happen is, they're going to sit down and they're going to reevaluate Darnold and how he fits into what the options are out there available to them. And what complicates Darnold is Deshaun Watson gettable? If he's gettable, in terms of the pieces that they would have to give up, the picks they would have to give up, then obviously, you start trying to move Darnold now. You start testing the market now. But I would expect that that's not a move that's made until they know for sure what's going on with Deshaun Watson. And they also, I think, are still evaluating. I think the BYU kid is somebody that they are probably going to take a real close look at.
A lot of people are interested in him. He's got that creative gene. He's got that playmaker. I hear good things about that creative gene he's got. Like, he can get out there and do stuff. The only issue is that he's kind of slight. Like, he's small. Like, not short. He's 6'2" or something, but like he's like 205 pounds or something. Like,
narrow.
Yeah, he's a narrow kid. Yeah, he's a narrow kid. So we're going to take a few more questions here. We're going to wait for him to drop on the screen. From John Parker. Worst introductory news conference moment: Dan Campbell's kneecap cannibalism or Nick Sirianni's system analysis? I can't help. I'm just gonna be honest to a court. The kneecap stuff was so over the top. I know Sirianni was stumbling, but he was just nervous. He
seemed nervous. He seemed extremely nervous.
I'm not like down. I'm not, but I'd rather have a guy that at least kind of seems grounded. He's just nervous about it. And I mean, what he said was really dumb.
Let's play this.
Stuff was just so. I don't see that playing with players.
Look, this is only going to be good for the live stream. No one's going to be able to hear it when they listen to this later, just the audio. But the difference between the two press conferences, when you're listening to Sirianni and he's saying what he's saying about the scheme, and this is what you're doing. You're going, what? Like, you're like, oh gee, you're just a little like, oh man, this is awkward. I'm backing away a little bit. But Dan Campbell, the kneecap thing, you're doing this. You're like, what? What did he just? And then he said it again. You're like, what is this guy talking? Oh my God, what the hell is he talking about? And then with the Dan Campbell, you're like this. You're on your phone. You're like, are you watching this right now? He's talking about eating people. It was. I would say Dan Campbell was worse. It was worse. Like, it was just
it was just. Like, that's not going to play with these guys. All these guys care about is, and maybe he'll learn this quickly, because I did hear he was like down in New Orleans. But all these guys care about is, can you make them better?
The reporters seem to love it. I did notice that. A lot of the reporters were really eating that up. I was like, okay.
I think some of that has to do to the horrificness of the last 3 years for them.
Fair enough.
I think you or I could be the coach, and they'd be like, oh man, this guy's a breath of fresh air. I know he's never been in an NFL front office before. I know he's gonna help. He's gonna talk to us. Like, I honestly think that. And look, we're all reporters. Like, it is what it is here. Like, it's fine. I think I get it. Like, I get it. Like, Dan Campbell seems to be kind of a fun guy. My only question is, and for the reporters, I'm sure that's a huge breath of fresh air. But I would also be like, if I'm a player, I'm like, all right, I hope that is as over the top as he's going to be, because it's a league full of grown men who only want to get made better, and that's all they care about. The rah-rah stuff is out the door by the time you're in year 3 in general. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Let's get another one from Jayhawk 1108. assuming the Jags add Lawrence, is there any way they convince Allen Robinson to come back? I mean, money talks in free agency, but I think Allen Robinson, by the way he's talking, like he's trying to go somewhere and win like now. But money talks. Like all these guys care about winning until the money's so much greater. So, they'd have to throw a ton of money at him. But I would imagine that if a team like Baltimore or some team that's kind of close but needs an alpha dog number one receiver were to throw a similar amount of money his way, that's just a better experience in my opinion.
And I don't know that Jacksonville really wants to go down that road right now, paying a receiver like right away out of the box. Like they got some young guys there that they're trying to develop. They're going to have a chance to take some
guys too.
Yeah.
And those interesting. Like they got some guys, man.
Yeah. And there's going to be other guys on the market that I think might be a little more economical than Allen Robinson and less of an injury, history. And remember, he has a history with Jacksonville and it's not all good. And, I think that taints it a little bit.
PTSD, man. He don't want to, he's had enough of that. All right, let's see another one. Steve Miller. What's going on, Steve? He asked, which rookie head coach are you expecting to have the most first season success? Well, let's think about it. We had Robert Saleh with the Jets, Nick Sirianni with the Eagles, Urban Meyer with the Jags, Brandon Staley with the Chargers, Arthur Smith with the Falcons, David Culley with the Texans, and Dan Campbell with the Lions. I think we could rule out Dan Campbell. I think that's one of the worst rosters in football. That's not happening.
Salah's got there's a lot going into that. I wouldn't automatically put them into the turn it around quickly phase. I think there's some roster churn going to happen there.
Okay, I got you. I will say I do like their offensive coordinator pairing. If they keep Darnold, like I think that often, and they keep Darnold and they can sign a receiver. Like there's a scenario where they can be a little spunkier faster than people think. But I do hear you on that. The Eagles have talent, but it's like, they got cap issues too, heading into a COVID $175 million cap year. I don't know, man. There's a reason I didn't mention them earlier when I was talking about the NFC East maybe getting a little bit better. I don't know, man. I think the Jaguars could be interesting when they take Lawrence. And if that staff jibes with the player, right, they could be interesting, right? Go ahead, bro.
I want to say Staley, with the Chargers because
Herbert
if you get Derwin James back, if you have a healthy complement of players on that roster, it's extremely talented. And if Herbert can, I don't even know if Herbert has to take a step. I'm like, just do what you did.
Now, as we talked about, there's no guarantee he maintains it.
No, there is not.
Staff, and boy, if they don't.
No, there's not. But and also, I'm not thrilled with the Raiders. The Raiders could be a rollback team, and the Broncos clearly. I'm sorry, I apologize. That was the team I kept leaving out. And the Matt Stafford stuff is the Broncos are clearly looking for a quarterback as well. So those teams are in flux enough that if you're just dealing with Kansas City, the Chargers have a chance to get it together pretty quickly. And I think he's going to be great with that defense, honestly. I think that defense has got –
I can speak to that. One thing that's going to help him, I talked to Chris Harris Jr. about this last week. He co-signs on that dude, like legitimately. Like, remember, he was in Denver with Chris Harris. Yep. Like, he legitimately co-signs on him saying, like, hey, he was really, really young, but why does Chris co-sign on him? Because he made him better. Right. And he was like, man, this dude can be a defensive coordinator. He said that before he got the Rams defensive coordinator job. And now he's genuinely excited for him to be his coach because he thinks he's a great communicator. So, like, I'm like, hey, if he's got Chris Harris Jr. buying in, they've already got the two edge rushers and Bosa and Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram. I'm with you, man. I think that turnaround can be quick. All they got to do is add some offensive linemen. So I think that's the answer. I do. I think it's the Chargers.
Yeah, I do too. I tend to think that the Chargers roster is set up for the incoming coach to do great things with at least one side of the ball, and then you have a quarterback on the other side of the ball who's, as long as he doesn't roll back, I mean, I think that there's a chance that team really comes together in year one.
Got a question from Jesse Bates. This one's funny. Ranch or blue cheese? Where do you come out, see?
What are we eating it with?
Let's just say chicken. Let's say chicken wings, man.
Yeah. See, I'm probably a ranch guy more than a blue cheese guy over long enough. Blue cheese doesn't go with a lot to me, you know.
It's not for me. But like the perfect ranch, like can help make wings, man. Like it can
wings, pizza crust.
Yeah, like it can kill it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we agree. What else we got before we wrap this thing up? That it? All right.
How about you and I? You want to talk? You and I got anything you want to talk about? Like just you and me? Like any? Okay, let me ask you this. I'll ask you this.
Yeah. What you got?
So you and I, we're covering the Super Bowl this year from our home base. We decided to do it from our home base. I'm actually seeing how the Zoom setup is and the availability. I'm actually really happy with that. I do think that it's definitely been a better order than I thought it would be. Yeah. What is the one thing though that you're really gonna miss? And I'll go first in terms of like Super Bowl.
I'm ready too. Go ahead, man.
So Super Bowl week, the thing I'm gonna miss, and it's more germane to you and I, it's Terez and I sitting across from each other on Wednesday night and just going, my God, like, can we just get to the game? like being like
completely wiped, bro.
Wiped out, running back and forth to all the different, like just trying to.
Your answer to me, bro. There's nothing better than when the Super Bowl is over, we get together and do the pod, and we click our recorders, and it's over. We finish the podcast. It's like 2:30 in the morning. I think last year we even
live.
Yeah,
we live sweet
at Hard Rock Stadium. I think you and I sat there for like maybe 10 minutes, just kind of 15 minutes, chopping it up, even though it's 10:30 in the morning. Just kind of, 2:30 in the morning, just kind of chopping it up. Like, man, we made it through another one, and that's a blessing. Like I know. Charles and I talk about how much we do sometimes, but don't ever get it twisted, man. We love what we do genuinely.
Oh, for sure.
We don't ever take that for granted, man, ever. And every year we can cover this league and be with you guys. That's a blessing, man. I know for me, kind of hanging, but it's not even just those moments. It's like us walking to the cab, trying to find the Uber at 2:30 in the morning. Buses left us. The buses left us.
Yeah. You and I were standing out there, and there was like one person left as we walked out, like a security person. I think they were asleep in their chair when we rolled up on them. We thought we had to climb the fence. We're like standing there. We're like, we're gonna have to climb the chain link fence to get out of the stadium right now. Yeah,
we're about to get scratched up. But even beyond that too, like, man, it's really great to kind of catch up with people in the business, like in the epicenter of the football world. You see so many people you don't see throughout the year. The dinners with people, whether that's coworkers or other colleagues, that's great. And then professionally, it is awesome getting the chance to sit down and talk to like some of these coordinators and stuff in person. You can actually kind of do stuff, which is awesome. So there's some things we genuinely miss, right? Like those are
absolutely
big things, man.
Especially when you get the if you run into players or you run into like coaches who are there, individuals who make the trip, and there's always a reason if they're not playing in the game. It's usually associated with them promoting something, or they're there. They're great. They're airy. There's a lightness about them. They're even though they're not part of it as one of the teams, there is an element of, I think, the enjoyment they have of sort of being there and experiencing it, and not from my head is buried into what we're doing. We got it, constantly having to focus.
The season's over. They can talk, and they do. Yeah. And they're a little more honest than they'd ordinarily be, or open at least.
I agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to miss that.
Like, it's a football carnival, right? Like that's what I would call it. It's like a football experience. Like it's a football carnival, man. Like, it's the center of the football world for a week, and it's actually pretty awesome. But we're going to make the best of it this year, won't we? And as you get ready for game day, remember we'll be back on Wednesday. But in the meantime, make sure you check out the Yahoo Sports College podcast. It's college hoop season. Check out Posted Up with Chris Haynes, Chris spoke to Clint Capella of the Hawks and the actors from One Night in Miami, so you might want to holler at that. Also, the Yahoo Sports Fantasy Football Forecast. Follow me on Twitter at Terez Paylor. Follow Charles on Twitter at Charles Robinson. Give Ace producer Brett Rader a follow as well. That's the highway to getting your questions answered. And Charles, tell them what else they need to know.
Rate and review us, please. Keep the 5-star ratings coming in. We got a perfect 5-star rating on over 1,000 reviews. At some point, I'm going to start to look and see specifically really where we're at. But means a lot to us. It's been great. People have been dropping questions in there. That's been awesome. I think people have been sharing the show on Twitter. I see it pretty consistently. I even saw some on Facebook. Really appreciate people sharing the show and bringing more listeners in. I think it's going to be a big off season for us. I think you're going to see some tweaks to the show in terms of whether it's music or setup or the name of the podcast. I mean, there could be a lot of different things that could happen. Thank you to everyone. And if you can, please continue to help us get this out there as much as possible.
Hey, I'm so proud of it. I'm going to ask you to repeat it again. What's our rating, C?
2, 3, 4, 5.
Flash the Kobe GIF.
That's right. No, is Pat Mahomes, right? Wasn't Pat Mahomes the Pat Mahomes count off? Yeah.
Perfect 5-star rating on how many reviews?
Over 1,000.
So make sure you keep checking out the Yahoo Sports NFL podcast for all your pro football news. He's Charles. I'm Terez. Thank you all for joining us. We appreciate it. Let's go. It's going to be a fun week. See you on Wednesday. Peace.